Hi, everybody. I am just putting together some information based on the France long-term visa that I am in application for so that I have some flexibility to go back and forth a bit better. For right now, that is for health reasons, but it could be for anything. And based on what I've been doing research about for the past many months versus what my experience ended up being in kind of getting to the finish line on some of these things, I just wanted to point out what those differences were, because there's a lot of really good information and a lot of really generous people giving great information out there. So I'm not gonna, this video is not to duplicate that. You can do your own research and be in your own groups, and there's lots of amazing people in those groups sharing accurate things. But there are a few things that varied, some of which were pretty important that I felt like I needed to make note of for myself. And now that I've had some feedback from other people that I made that list for, who said, "Oh my goodness, this was very helpful." I thought for people who handle videos better than a big long online post, this might be more helpful for some, and for even the people who liked the post that I did, maybe this would be an easier thing to sort of download to your phone or computer or whatever, if you needed to keep it for future reference. So I've organized it in a way that I hope is helpful. And if it's not, then tell me on the tell me in your comment feed on the YouTube. Okay, so I'm just going to hop in here. Let's see. Okay, we are sharing, so that's good. I'm going to go into the slideshow mode so you can see best. And so we're going to talk about 4 different pieces of this. And I thought about setting them up separately in different videos, but they're so interdependent that I don't feel like that would be of service. It would be for the algorithm, but it would not be as serviceable for someone actually going through the process. So I hope that this is helpful and not too much information at once. First, we're going to talk about scheduling, then the medical coverage that we need for the visa, and then robot problems, technical issues, sort of glitchy things, or just different customs for this audience. For France, then you might be used to, I'm coming from United States cultural background, and each of us have our norms in our different countries that may vary. And then finally, the myths. The myths are really what got me documenting this. But all of these other pieces kind of lead up to those, and not because I'm trying to like take up all your time, although you can certainly fast forward if you want to, but really because they build on one another. And so ultimately, in organizing it several ways, this seemed to be the way that would make the most sense. So the myth of visa sequencing is that I have always understood, is you need to book your housing first, because you have to have that kind of affidavit. You have to have those details from your host in order to do anything else. Then you buy your medical coverage because you'll need that also for your visa application. And then you do your visa application online, and then you do your VFS appointment, which, if you're just brand new to this, I don't know what VFS stands for, but it is the global third-party agency that a lot of countries use to take in their information. A lot of people describe it as an appointment with the DMV, basically. So you're just bringing your documents that support your application. They're seeing if you brought the right documents or if you have to come back another day and do this all again. And if you do it right, then they take your documents, they send them to Washington, D.C., and in the case of the U.S., and then they get processed. And then DC sends them back to you. And then finally, you book your flight as soon as possible after that. And it does have to be as soon as possible after that, because once you turn in your visa application, you have put in that you want to be in France 90 days or less from the time of that visa application date. So there is some time sensitivity at this stage of the process. So some of this ended up being correct, but a lot of it did not end up being correct. And that's why I kind of made this. So first, I'm going to talk through the scheduling. Just ignore this. If you don't like words, it's totally fine. Actually, hang on. Forgot to delete one thing from my original post. Here we go. Okay, that'll be less confusing for you. So, um, people have said, to be fair, people who are kind of tutoring us all in what to do with the VFS calendar to book our appointment for those supporting document handoffs, they said to they said that you could go into VFS with your FRA number, and your FRA number is when you start your visa application, but it's just a draft. You'll automatically get an FRA number. It's kind of a long number, but you can put that number into the VFS site to look at their calendar to at least get a sense of like how far out do I need to be planning for my appointments? Do I need to take off work to do that kind of thing, etc. I thought I would see how far I could get into the VFS calendar because most recently, although I've looked at it before at different times, most recently it said that the soonest I could book was 4/3. Well, in the end of February kind of time frame, that looked pretty far off, especially when you've looked into flights and booking and so forth. But and it only gave two options. The next day from when I was looking, and the next day after that. I thought, well, gosh, making a several-hour trip to that location would be a lot to do in a day or two, and usually I would do other things in that location at the same time if I'm going to make that trip. So, but instead, when I looked at it, again, it like the 2 days later, it had the entire month open for March, and it gave me lots of options. And so I was able to book a slot pretty much any time in March that I wanted to. And the lesson here is a few things. One is that VFS is really switching around their calendaring because this was not their custom in terms of like the visibility that I had a few months ago. You could say that's due to American flight or whatever, but there's not that many people. If you're in a lot of these expat groups, you know that there's not that many people very organized yet. People who are just getting afraid now of being in the United States or needing to go, they're nowhere near this part of the process. So they're not the ones clogging this up. Now they might be 6 months from now, but they're not those people right now. But also note that in the Google Maps location web link, if you were to look up on Google Maps right now, VFS Houston, and this is Houston specific because all the VFS offices do have their own customs. And so if you're not near the Houston office, you may find something else is the norm for their calendaring. But if you're doing Houston, it's going to take you to VFS. It's going to tell you where it is, which is kind of mostly what you need to know. But it's actually linked to their Netherlands office. Now, again, same building, but different floor. And if you click in, if you're trying to find the website for VFS through that Google Maps link, it's going to take you to the Netherlands visa website. It's not going to take you like for VFS. It's not going to take you to the one for France. So if that happens to you, just change the part of the URL that says, I don't know, NDR or something that, obviously isn't France. You want to change that to FRA, just type it in yourself and it will take you straight there. And you may already have it bookmarked by now, but if you don't, that's another way to get there. Okay. But also really important to know that, and a lot of us know that in other countries than the US, like generally the date and then the month are used in the sequencing of a date number. But since I was in the US and since the VFS office I'm going to is also in the US, I didn't make that connection for this particular instance. And so when I saw that the soonest I booked was 4/3, I read that as April 3rd and not March 4th, which are really different timeframes, right? So, which impacted like everything about what I was planning. So just note that. Oh, sorry, I already did that. The other thing is, how long do I want to stay? So, your options that you're going to be given in the visa application are 3 to 6 months, 6 to 12 months, and over 12 months. You're not going to be given a 0 to 3 months because if you've gotten far enough in the process that you are applying for the visa, it's because you already said, I want to be there more than 3 months. If you're going to be there under 3 months and you're a US citizen, you don't have to have a visa at all in France. So, if you put in that you want 3 to 6 months or 6 to 12 months, you will be reverted to the VLS-T, which is probably stands for tourist. I don't know for sure. But the problem with that is that if you are going to be going in and out flexibly and you want the right to start kind of moving toward France as a place that you are a lot or are permanently, the problem with the 3 or 6 or 9 month option is even if that is the amount of time you're going to be there, things can change. So what the bottom line is you want to be there more than that. And what will happen if you don't say over 12 months on your visa application, you will not get the option to stay that long. You will get the option that you asked for. And the other problem is that the VLST and the VLSTS, which is what you want if you want the most flexibility, are very different in that if you get the VLST, which is this 3 to 12 months kind of visa period, then you will have to be back in the United States in order to apply again, and you'll have to start over. Whereas France has a very flexible visa and stay process for people who want to set up residency or be there more and flexibly. Whereas so that if you apply for the 12 months, the over 12 months period, which is the TS on the end of your visa that they will assign you, then that means that if you happen to be in France at the time that you need to do the renewal for that visa, you can do that. You can't do it any other way, though. You can't do it if you signed up for a shorter visa period. So it's really important if you're looking for either flexibility or permanent relocation to put that over 12 months thing on there. I was worried about doing that because I thought, oh, well, what if that flags something security wise that I'm going to overstay or something when I'm supposed to leave or something. So, but it doesn't do that. It just tells them which visa to assign you to. There are a few horror stories that we've all heard that somebody who thought that they applied for an over 12-month or a TS didn't. Or maybe checked one of these other boxes on their visa application, and then they were in France and had set up homes and whatever, and had to fly all the way back to the US for 6 months to redo the process. The other downside to not applying for the TS is that you have to start over your clock. So whereas when you get a TS, it's great because as you renew, if you keep renewing, you are adding up years kind of in credit toward your much more permanent visa status, which is after 5 times of renewing in a row, you get to renew for 5 years. And after that, you get to renew for 10 years. So you're kind of saving up that credit a little bit. So just to reiterate, the security robots will not be angry if you say you want more than 12 months, as long as you show them the bank statements and that you're not a criminal. That's the main thing that people are looking for in letting you in France. So let's see. Oh, we already did that. Okay. You can tell I'm not getting paid to make this presentation, so it's not the level that you would get back in my working days. You'd be amazed how long this took to make, given my medical conditions these days. Okay, so how to find correct medical insurance. Now, there's lots of threads about this, and they tend to be very helpful threads, and they tend to be really accurate. But what I found right as I needed to buy them was that there was someone much older than I am I have a lot of medical conditions, and so, it's kind of six of one, half dozen of the other in terms of insurance purposes. But for someone much older than I am who said, "Oh, I just bought the VFS offered insurance at the end of the process of my visa application." He may have meant at the end of the scheduling of his VFS appointment. I'm not sure because that's one of the things that I did not find consistent in my experience. However, the VFS insurance, which is actually called Mutuaid, um, is the appropriate medical insurance that's required by France for visas. It's really important to note before you go down the rabbit hole of applying to all different kinds of quotes for different companies that are all just, randomly placed, and you just kind of keep trying. Most of those are travel insurances. And even though the word travel is in the mutual aid insurance, it is the high level of insurance carrying and clicks on all of the checklist that's required by France. Other kinds of travel insurance with a little medical tacked on don't tend to be what France accepts. And once you buy them, you cannot get a refund if you are denied the visa, whereas mutual aid, you do get the refund and you don't have to pay for any of it if you apply for the visa and France doesn't take you. And it doesn't have to be because France says, oh, that's the wrong insurance. It's just no, France decides they don't want you. Mutual aid will give you back all of your money. So this is a really big deal. Also, having shopped a lot for that kind of medical insurance, I know that mutual aid also has the best price. And so, if you're in France more than 90 days, you get to then go ahead and apply for their health insurance too. So you're not going to be, stranded, most likely. It would be very, very unusual for that to happen. Plus, if you need to pay out in cash in France for healthcare, it's very inexpensive anyway if you're an American and used to those kinds of prices. So, so you want to get just kind of what's required. And I've heard that mutual aid is actually like a good insurance if you have to use it, but regardless, you can go ahead and buy that. It was at the time of this recording, it was €500, which is right under $550. So you will notice on that there isn't any travel insurance in there. I mean, there's evacuation and there's repatriation of your body, but there's not travel, like cancellation of flights kind of insurance. And so if you want to do that, just do it separately. So that is what you need to know about that. The other thing is that, well, I'll get to a myth about the medical coverage in a few minutes. So now just the glitchies. Okay, so when you are applying for your visa in the system that France has, which is very, very, very straightforward. Okay. It's a very easy to use one, although I would recommend having in a different tab right beside you a translate tool so that if you need to paste something into it and make sure that you know what you're clicking or saying yes or no to, you can. But if you're a writer or if you are a drafts person of any sort, any kind of communication person, you know that you keep every single draft of things that you do. I think this is especially true for official documents in general. However, it's not allowed well, it's allowed, but you're not going to be able to submit your visa application if you have those extra drafts there. It's not like it's going to let you just click on the one that you want to send in and it has the submit button. It just doesn't have it. And it took me a while to figure this out. And thank goodness for somebody who kind of pointed me in that direction. And so I tried to delete all my extra drafts. But usually I wouldn't delete those drafts until I know the first one went through properly, right? So what's going to happen is you are going to, and I'm sorry, this is so small. I wish I could make it bigger, but I can't in this mode. You can see that right here, I had two groups. And that was partly because this was a little bit glitchy going into it. And it didn't like my translation extension at first. And it was kind of a whole thing. But that was a few months ago when I didn't know a lot about what I was doing. So now you see at the top box there are two entries. One is a draft and one is the one that I finished. You can see if you're not colorblind, you can tell that there's a red and a green version. The green version says validé, And that's also the one with the check mark. The one with the check mark is the one that they say is ready to go. Okay. If you want to edit it further, you can do that with a little pencil icon, etc. But for anything you want to trash, these are the same kind of icons we see in the US. Just click on the little trash can button beside the pencil icon under supprimer hoop over on the right side here. And you're going to get rid of anything in red that has the X by it when you are ready to submit. When you are ready to submit, those two red ones will disappear, this one and this one. You'll be left with this one, and that's when you can do it. If you're applying with more than one person, you can put everybody in the same group or not put everybody in the same group. But just make sure that within whatever group they're in, you don't have any of these kind of, hangers on. Okay, that's what you have to do. Once you do that, it will give you a submit option. It will come up to you in your face and it will be obvious, but it will not come up on its own, and it will not come up as you might expect it to in the US. Kind of as you go through the application, the last page of that is not going to be the submit button. Hopefully that will save you a lot of time. Okay, we already did this one. Now, myths that we want to talk through just for a second. I've referred a little bit to some of these. Myth number one around insurance is that VFS is going to offer you insurance in the visa application, sort of tacked into the, even though VFS doesn't run the visa application, that there's going to be some offering of VFS insurance at the end of the application. There isn't. Okay, so just don't expect that. Myth number two related to that is that VFS is going to offer you insurance in its scheduling tool when you set up that booking appointment, when you set up the appointment to go in and give them your documents. That is also not going to happen. What may happen is that once you get to the end of that process, there's a little like really low rent like banner ad that comes up. But that banner ad has a broken link to it. It's just like a picture of a beach or something kind of dumb. And the VFS is, it's not clear whether it's on there or not, but it mentions mutual aid. Well, you don't know mutual aid is VFS necessarily. And maybe it isn't, maybe it's just mutual aid buys ad space from VFS. I don't know. But at any rate, you just want to keep that in mind. Don't be expecting that you have to wait to fill in the visa application until you're ready to, until you've vetted all your insurance options. And don't think you have to get the medical insurance sorted out before you book the appointment with VFS. You don't have to do any of those things. I hear it all the time that you have to do those things. You don't. It's just not in there. And sometimes we remember things differently a month or 2 months or a year later. And that's why I documented on the day that I did it that, oh, these things are different. And these things notably are not things related to Houston VFS in particular, right? They're just probably across the board. So the other lesson here is that you really don't need to wait to buy your insurance until you get through the portals. Number one, because mutual aid is really the best option all the way around. But also, you can just Google that and buy it. And as long as you're buying the kind that will be refunded to you if you don't get the visa, then you're okay. And there's no reason to take the risk of buying something that isn't going to be that. Okay, so the next myth, well, we kind of already talked about this, but what you do instead here, I was definitely not required to have my visa application submitted in order to book my VFS appointment. In fact, I know that because I thought that mine was submitted since I couldn't find the submit button and I thought I was done. And so I went to schedule the appointment and I scheduled the appointment just fine. All it needs is your FRA number. So that's it. So as soon as you are feeling ready to go and like you're going to be able to do that, you do have to take the visa application that's printed up at the end of that process to the office, to VFS, but you're not going to VFS tomorrow, most likely. right? So you've got all kinds of time to finish up that visa application. Now, keep in mind, it does glitch and stuff. And so you want to make sure you have enough lead time. Don't go like 12 hours later or something. But as soon as you feel ready to go ahead and create the application draft, copy the FRA number that is on that application draft, and make that appointment. And the FRA number is in the screen I just showed you that has the boxes of your applications. It's the far left number there, and it says FRA and a whole bunch of other mess, digits and stuff. So just do it. Yeah, we already did that. Okay, so that is hopefully somewhat helpful. I will, once I do my visa appointment, or once I do my VFS appointment, I'll probably do something like this again if it is helpful to people. So if this is helpful to you and you would like me to do that, just please let me know. This is actually a lot of work, especially since I'm very ill right now. But I'm very happy to do it in the slow bit by bit time that I can. If it's helpful to folks. If it's not helpful, then just say that wasn't helpful, and we'll all move on. Okay. But take care for now.